Jai Hind to all. This is Santosh Mishra from Information Technology Department of Ajay Kumar Garg Engineering College. In last lecture, we have studied what the servlet is and how can we access the data of the client on the server through servlet. So, we will continue from that lecture and see how we can take the data from the client to the servlet, and if required we can process that data to the servlet itself, or that servlet may use the backend databases and send back those access data from the client to the server side to the backend database for permanent storage. And whenever that data required, we may access those data from the backend, and this may help a number of times to create your real projects. So, this lecture is very important. So, let's recap the previous one that we have covered. We studied what the servlet is. As we all know that a servlet is a piece of code. It's a lightweight code that resides over the web server, and whenever the client required that services of that servlet, then client sends a HTTP servlet request to that servlet on the server, and the server processes those request and generate the response for that request and send back the HTTP response object back to the client. So, it's the responsibility of servlet to generate the response in the client understandable format, and as we all know that the client has the browser and the browser understand the HTML. So, it's the responsibility of our servlet to generate the responses in the HTML format. So, let's start from this, and also we have studied what the servlet does. Servlet just plays the life cycle. Its life cycle contains three methods: init method, service method and destroy method. Init method is responsible for initialization of the servlet, and during initializations it initializes a number of parameters for execution of that servlet, and the service method contains the actual code that the that servlet wants to perform. Means whatever you want to do by that servlet, that code must be put within that service method, and whenever the servlet terminates, it fire its destroy method. This way the servlet works. So, let's understand today in today's lecture how we can access the client data and send back that data to the backend databases. For backend we will use MySQL. So, let's begin. So, as I have already told you in previous lecture that the implementation of our servlet we will do on a software that is MyEclipse, and this MyEclipse is primarily used in the companies for implementation of the projects. It's a framework on which you can create your client server architecture. So, as I have already told you, to create a servlet code, you have to create a new project and of web means you have to create a enterprise application project, or you can create a web service project if you want to create a servlet. So, I have already told you this in previous lecture. You have created just like the previous one. I have created a servlet project named project, and as I have already told you that whenever you create a web project, thus MyEclipse already create the required hierarchical structure that is required for the deployment of your servlet. So this hierarchy creation is done by this MyEclipse itself. You just need to focus on your coding part, and you need to understand that whatever external libraries are required, that must be built with this servlet project, with this project. Like to execute a servlet, you need to have a servlet-api.jar file, and I have already told you that if you required any external jar, you need to click on your project. Like here I am clicking on servlet project, right click on that, then click on build path. After that click on configure build path, and after that you have to, here it will by default clicked on source, you need to click on library, and after that you have to click on add external jar. Select that jar wherever it is. If it is not available with you, you just need to go to Google it, download it, and locate that library here. I have to create a database connectivity with my servlet. For that I required MySQL connector also. I have downloaded that in my download folder. So I just need to click on and then open it, and it will be available with this library. So this way, if you required servlet api.jar, in the similar fashion you need to download that from online sources. It is freely available, or you can just have with you, and then add it as a external jar to your project. Whatever library you required, you need to add it as a external jar. Here I required servlet api.jar for servlet execution and MySQL connector for database connectivity. Both these files I have downloaded and added in my this project as a external jar libraries. So this way you need to provide the external required jar file to your web project. After that, here the hierarchy is created by MyEclipse itself. You just need to understand where you have to put your code. If your code contains some Java part, that Java part must be put within this source package, and if you have any client things, client pages, then client pages must be put within this web root folder. So since you want to take the data from the client, so for that you need to create a HTML page, and that HTML, CSS, JavaScript, all those things, web things must be put within this web root folder. So I have created a form as we have done in previous lecture. I have created this akgc form.html file. So this HTML file just asking for name and password of the user, and it's had a submit button. We have understood this in previous lecture. Here in action part, we have provided the path of the servlet that will be executed whenever this submit button will be clicked. So this way you just accent your HTML page with servlet, and whenever you provide the data over here and click on submit button, that data will go to the servlet, and in servlet you have to, this I have explained in previous lecture. The only things we are adding is how to connect this data to the backend. So you have created a servlet, hello servlet, and it has extended HTTP servlet, and this I have explained you in previous. If you forget, then just right click on your web project, right click on your src folder and create new and after that create a servlet. Click on servlet. Then this my Eclipse will automatically create a servlet. Provide all the things, it will create the named servlet, that name you have passed, and all things will be done. You just need to go to this do get or do post method, whatever you have checked as I have explained in previous one. So this do get or do post depending upon whatever method you have used in your HTML. Since in my HTML page I have used get method as a method of the form, so here also you have to override the do get method. So in this do get method there are two parameters, HTML servlet request object and HTML servlet response object has been passed. So this request object is used to take the data from the client, and this response object will be used to send back the responses to the client, as we have already seen in the previous lecture. Now I have said that the content type of the responses will be either text or HTML, because the client only understand the HTML or text format in its browser. So this out is for sending the response to the client, as we have seen previously. So now to access the form data of the client, you just need to call request.getParameter method. This request HTTP servlet request class have the get parameter method that is responsible to access the form data of the client. So request.getParameter, and here pass the name of the field to which the data you want to access. Like here in HTML field, in this HTML page, the name of the first text field is T1. So you need to pass here firstly T1 request.getParameter bracket, in bracket you have to write T1. This way the value entered by the client in the T1 field will be accessed, and we have stored that in N1 variable. Similarly, the value of the T2 field will be stored in the N2 variable as we have written over here. Now to connect with the database, these 5 things you need to do. Firstly, you have to register your program with the required database. Since we are using MySQL database, so you need to pass this registration string to the class.forName method. This registration string, if you are using some another database, then you can Google what is the registration string for that particular database. After that, you will call driver manager.getConnection method to create the connection from this program to the backend database. In the backend database, you need to create a database. For that, you have to open MySQL. Provide the password what you have set. I have set admin, so I am providing it. Here in MySQL, you need to create a database. Create a database. Give the database name, like I am providing DB1, and after that you have to go in that database by using that use DB1. After that, you have to create the required field in the form of the table in which the data will be stored. Since we are accessing two field data, name and password, you have to create only 2 fields here. I am creating create table. Let's say I am naming it as my table. Then the field name is name, it's of varchar type, and the size of that is 20. I am passing. Now the next field is password. Here also the type is varchar type, and the size is, let's say, 10. So now only two fields are there, put the bracket and semicolon. After your that your table is created. Here if you want to check, select star from my table, you can see that there is no value in this table. So if you want to insert the value from the client, you just need to go over here. In the connection string, you have to pass here the port on which the database is stored. This is the connection string. Here this is port number and this is the database name. So your database name is DB1. Provide the database name as DB1. This is the database name. Here one. Now here this is the root of your database and its password. As I have told you that my root password is admin. This way this connection string you need to provide. Your servlet will create a connection from this database and this will be provided in the variable con. Now after that you have to create a statement object, con.create statement, and I have stored it in stmt type variable, statement type variable stmt. Now the three things you have done. First, you have created the registration, registered your code with the database. Second, you created a connection. Thirdly, you have created the statement object. Fourth, you have to create the query that you want to fire. I want to insert the data. For that, you have to write insert into table name. My table name was my table. So provide here my table in bracket field, pass the field name. The field name was name and password and value, and we want to store these value that we have accessed from the form n1 and n2. So pass that n1 and n2 in this format only. Need to take care of that. If it is of string type, no need to pass double quote, only put it in single quote. But if it is a string, then put it in single quote, then double quote, and so this way. After creating this query, to execute this query, if you want to store the data in the database, you have to call execute update method, and if you want to fetch the data from the database, then you have to run the stmt.execute query method. For fetching the data, you have to call execute query, and for inserting the data, you have to call execute update method. So now call execute update method, pass that query, this queue contains the query, and this way your data will be stored. After that, close the connection. Okay, and you will see that once your code execute, your data will be go to the backend database and store there. If you want to access the database, we want to fetch that data from the database, you can change the query like this. Pass the table name here. The table name is my table. After that, if you want to fetch, call this stmt.execute query method, pass this q1 object that you have provided here to call the data, fetch the data. Now since data are many, so for process the data one by one, there are result set method, result set class in servlet, that is in Jdbc, that is responsible to process that. So put that in rs.next method. This next method will be provide true if there is more data, otherwise it will return false. So one by one you can process that data. This way you can either store or fetch the data as per your requirement through the servlet. So I hope you understanding all these things. In next lecture we will see more. Okay, thank you, thanks a lot. Meet you all in next lecture.